What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the live Thursday night football breakdown for week 5 between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Atlanta Falcons. If you've never been here before, we go through all the coverage data, all of the run scheme data to help you with your fantasy start sits and your parlays. If you like anything like this, make sure you subscribe below, leave a like on the video if you enjoyed as well. Without further ado, though, let's get into it. Let's start talking data. The very, very fascinating thing about both of these teams is the coverage they run, as well as the targets that come with it, but more importantly, the coverage they run. So we're going to start with as soon as I can get this right, we're going to start with the Atlanta Falcons defense because it's been better than we think. But when it comes to target rate, there's a pretty good tell with this team. So let's open this up. So the Atlanta Falcons defense versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. That's what we're going to be talking about first. And we can start with the coverage rates. Again, if you guys are watching on TikTok right now, watching on Instagram right now, click the link in my bio and join the YouTube live stream so you can see me break down all of this data. So the Atlanta Falcons defense, we can start with the out wide targets. The out wide targets for the Atlanta Falcons right now, scroll down a little bit here. Bottom of the league, 30th or third lowest. Third lowest in the entire NFL at 33.1% in terms of out wide target rate. We go to the slot target rate. Very high. It's 41.3%, which would put themselves third highest in the NFL. So interesting. So third highest slot target. So that would mean we lean Chris Godwin. We'll wait for some more information on that. But third highest in the NFL at 43.1% target rate. The others aren't anything crazy. Inline rate probably going to be a little bit lower if I had to guess. Yep. So 23rd in the NFL in inline target rate allowed, which is 9.1%. And then back target, my guess is it's above average, but not too far. Yeah. So 16.5% above in back target rate, which is 14th in the NFL. But the big tip here, guys, the big tip here is slot target rate. So once we find a tip with all of this stuff, what we do is we go to the other team's offense and check two things. Number one, the overall offensive passing target rate. We can do that pretty generally with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as well as, and we don't really need to do it much for the Bucs because we know Chris Godwin runs the slot routes, but as well as who runs the most routes from the slot. So we can start by looking at the overall target rate from this Tampa Bay offense. Wrong thing. The overall target rate from this Tampa Bay offense. So offensive target rate, when you look at where Baker Mayfield throws the ball, Tampa Bay out wide target, bottom. Okay, so bottom, fifth lowest. Slot, probably me above average if I had to guess. 12th highest, okay. So that's our big tip right now. Inline, 7th highest, okay. And then back target, middle of the pack if I had to guess. 17th highest. So here's the bottom line, and we'll go look at slot routes really quick. But the bottom line right now with this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense from the data that we found is they throw to the slot more than any other spot. And the Atlanta Falcons allow more slot targets than any other alignment or position on the field. So what we do now is we go to receiving, we go to routes run. And like I said, you don't really need to do this much for the Falcons. We know who runs the routes from the slot, or the Buccaneers, excuse me. We know who runs the routes from the slots, but we can still do the research anyway. So you look at the slot target rate, it's Chris Godwin, number 1 at 76, and it's not really close. But what's good to note here is because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers throw their highest percentage of target rate to opposing tight ends, how many routes is Cade Otton running from the slot? Because they'll like to throw to tight ends. Falcons aren't great against, or aren't terrible against tight ends. But they will try to get the ball in the ways that they're used to, which is throwing to tight ends. So Cade Otton, so 34, Evans, and then Cade Otton with 31. So early lean in the pass game, at least, is obviously Chris Godwin for sure. Anybody who's on the YouTube live stream right now, though, let me know what Chris Godwin's receiving projections are. Receptions and yards. And again, if you guys are on Instagram, if you guys are on TikTok, we are breaking down this data live on YouTube. Click the link in my bio. Just got to subscribe over there. Don't miss out. You basically get a 3-4 hour head start on your fantasy start sits, your Thursday night football, like projections, player props, parlays, all that good stuff. Just click the link in my bio and get on there. So I think Chris Godwin is probably the early lean. We'll look at some run data too, though. That's the next step in this process. So we'll look at some run data. But here's the bottom line with the Falcons offense, at least, or the Buccaneers offense against Falcons defense in the pass game, what we've seen so far. Buccaneers love to throw to tight ends and love to throw to the slot. The Atlanta Falcons don't allow a ton of targets to inline tight ends. 6 and 65.5 for Godwin. 65.5 to me is really good. I like that. That's probably what we'll lean, at least right now. But they allowed the third highest slot target percentage in the NFL. And we can also go a little bit deeper into the data for the routes. So Chris Godwin's targets per route run in the slot. Ooh, okay. So it's 0.3 per route run, but yards per route run is 3.2. That's a lot. 3.2 yards per route run from the slot is a lot. And we said 65.5. So if we do that math, 3.2 times, let's see. So it'd be 3.2 times how many slot routes we got? 76 over 4. Don't forget PEMDAS, everybody. Don't forget PEMDAS, everybody. So that number puts him at a baseline expectation, regardless of matchup, at 60.8 yards. So I like that a lot for Godwin. I think Godwin right now, Godwin yards is probably where we lead. But I do like that a lot. So Godwin yards is probably where we're leaning right now. Let's get into some run scheme data, though. Look, I don't think we're going to find anything crazy. The Bucs aren't great with running the ball, and they also just throw the ball a ton. So we'll get into that. We'll look at the Falcons' run defense first, though. As always, if you guys are enjoying the video, make sure you leave a like. Make sure you subscribe. And if you have your own 2 cents on what player projections you are looking at, make sure you comment. I want to know, too. We're going to do a little Lobes leads parlay, as always, for the Thursday night game. So I want to hear what you guys have to say. All right. So in terms of rush defense, the Atlanta Falcons are facing the second most attempts in the NFL. Okay, so teams are trying to run the ball on them. Overall yards per carry. Wow. So they're top 10 in overall yards per carry defensively, but teams are still trying to run the ball on them. Interesting. So zone concept runs against the Atlanta Falcons, probably towards the bottom if I had to guess. Okay, so they're 20th highest, and they faced a little more zone than the man gap schemed runs. So they have faced 62 zone attempts compared to 52 man gap. They allow 3.98 yards per carry compared to 4.02 yards per carry in man gap. That's 20th in the NFL in zone, and then man gap will be 23rd. So Falcons run defense pretty stout. Again, the Bucs, at least off the top of my head with the knowledge I have, are not wildly successful on the ground, so I don't think we're going to see a big strike here. In terms of rush attempts, they're bottom 10, so they don't love to run the ball. Efficiency just over 4 yards a carry, middle of the pack. It's bottom 11, not bottom 10. But let's see if there's any type of tip with what they're better at. Maybe we lean something there, because if there is, what's really interesting with Tampa Bay Buccaneers, if there's a tip on like which type of run they're better at, if they're way better at certain, we can look at where Bucky Irving is running the football and where Rashad White is running the football, see if there's a difference there and maybe make an educated guess there. In terms of zone concept, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are second to last in the NFL, and they're running more zone than man. So that's not good. 44-36. Oh, okay. We got something here, guys. So 44 zone runs to 36 man gap runs, 2.23 yards per carry in zone, which is ridiculous. That's 31st in the NFL, but 5.83 yards per carry in man gap. That's got to put them in the top 5, right? They're 5th. Okay, so that's crazy. So there's a big discrepancy there. So here's what happens when we find a big discrepancy like that. We go to rushing, we go to advanced rushing offense, and we go to the player tab. So what we're going to do right now is we are going to see if there's a Tampa Bay Buccaneer that has significantly more man gap runs than zone runs. I'm fascinated to see how they're using Bucky Irving and Rachaad White. So when you look at the man gap, Bucky Irving has, okay, here you go, guys. So Bucky Irving has more man gap runs than Rachaad White does. 19-13 man gap. Rachaad White is dominating the zone runs, 28-13. So here's what that says. The more efficient type of run that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers use is Bucky Irving's specialty, or what he's better at. And they both are averaging a good yards per carry and man gap. Bucky Irving's just way better. Rachaad White can't run zone. So anybody on the YouTube right now, guys, go look at Bucky Irving's rush yards. Let me know what Bucky Irving's rush yards are. And again, if you guys are on TikTok, if you guys are on Instagram, you want to see me break this stuff down live, I'm doing it on YouTube. Just click the link in my bio and subscribe over there. But Bucky Irving, there is a tell in the run game for Bucky Irving. That is fascinating. I was not expecting that. I see somebody on TikTok said 43.5, 45.5. Okay. So I will probably hold my water on that one a little bit, but it's good to note. So early leans for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. We love Chris Godwin. I like Cade Otton a lot. I think the slot production, as well as the overall need of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to get the ball inside, is going to help him a lot. And Bucky Irving rushing. So those are the 3 early leans for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. Okay, I see a 41.5 on TikTok as well. So I love it. I love Bucky Irving right now. Bucky Irving rushing. I'm going to hold my water on the official number again. Like 4 p.m. Eastern on the socials, you guys will see tomorrow morning you'll see my official picks. But 4 p.m. Eastern, you'll see all this. And if you guys are watching on YouTube, again, we're going to go through the other side of the ball now. Falcons O versus Tampa Bay D. So if you guys are just hopping on TikTok, you're just hopping on Instagram, I'm breaking down all of the data right now for Thursday Night Football, for your parlays, for your fantasy start sits. If you got players on Thursday Night Football between Tampa and Atlanta, click the link in my bio and head over to my YouTube. That's where I'm breaking all of this stuff down. You're getting a 3-4 hour head start on this. This full YouTube video will be out in a few hours, but if you join YouTube and watch live now, subscribe, obviously, you'll get a head start on all this stuff, so I don't want you guys to miss it. And we've been really good on Thursday night. I don't think we've had a losing Thursday night so far this year, if I remember correctly. But we've been pretty good on Thursday night. This past Thursday was which game? Giants, Cowboys. We were 3-1 with this data. So join, subscribe if you haven't already. But let's talk Tampa Bay defense versus Atlanta offense. So if you guys are just joining any of the socials, any of the YouTubes, what we do first, we go to coverage data and see where the defense is allowing most of their targets. So for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it looks like out wide, and it looks like the running backs, at least from the original numbers. So out wide for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, fix this. Out wide for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're allowing 44.9% of their targets, which is 7th in the NFL. It's a lot. It's pretty high. It makes sense. They don't really have outside corners. Slot targets, they're going to be very, very low. Slot targets for Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 26th in the NFL at 28.7%. So they're not allowing a ton of targets between the tackles in the middle, between the hashes in the middle. It's 26th. Inline target. Wow, that's going to be really low. 8.1. Also 26th in the NFL. 8.1. 26. And then running back targets, I had to guess probably decently high. 7th also. Okay, interesting. So everything is either 7th or 26th comparatively, which is interesting. So it's 17.6% of targets, which is 7th. Now, after that, we move over to the Falcons offense, just generally speaking, where they throw the football, where Kirk Cousins looks to throw the football. That's kind of the next step in all of this process. So we go over to overall target rates for Kirk Cousins. So ideally, if we want to find a lean in the Atlanta passing game versus the Tampa Bay defense, we want to find somewhere that has a high target rate in terms of like the out wide receivers or the running back targets on both sides. So we already have out wide. We already have running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let's see if we get it for the Atlanta Falcons. So Atlanta Falcons, okay, they're above average in their out wide targets, which is not bad. 40.9%, which is 14th in the NFL. I don't love that. 36.4% in terms of slot targets, 7.3% in terms of inline targets, and then 15.5 in terms of running back targets is pretty solid. Okay, I like that. So 36.4 comparatively will be 11th in the NFL. Okay, so 11th in the NFL in slot targets. Inline targets, probably towards the bottom. 26 in the NFL. And then back target. 15.5 or 15. Wow, that's lower than I thought. Okay, so 19th comparatively in the NFL. So the only little bit of overlap in terms of the pass game is the out wide targets. And there's not a ton of overlap. The Bucs just allow a ton of out wide targets. So let's check who runs the out wide routes the most, at least, for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's probably, or Atlanta Falcons, excuse me. It's probably Drake London, but I'm fascinated to see who number 2 is. Let's see. Yeah, it's okay. So it's London and Mooney, and it's pretty even, and it's London and Mooney pretty evenly distributed in the slot too. Interesting. Okay. That's okay. So that's a little tougher to break down. What's good to note here, though, is so it's 74 wide routes for London, 66 wide routes for Mooney, and then slot is 44 for Mooney and 36 for London. McLeod is their true slot guy, though. So any 11 personnel stuff, McLeod is going to be the slot guy. We don't have to worry about Mooney or London sliding inside. That's good. So yards per route run is what I'm really looking at, as well as targets per route run. So Mooney and London are out wide pretty even in terms of who gets the targets. Mooney has more yards per route run, though. So 2.18 for Mooney out wide, and then 1.32 for London out wide. And then slot, London's better in the slot. Wow, interesting. So London's better in the slot in terms of yards per out run, 2.83, and then Mooney's 1.84. So anybody on the YouTube right now, I'll ask you, what are the yards for Mooney and Drake London? What are the 2 yardage projections? And again, if you guys are on Instagram, if you guys are on TikTok, you don't know what I'm talking about, click the link in my bio, join the YouTube live, watch us break down this live Thursday Night Football data. What are the yards for Mooney and the yards for London? Because I would probably lean, here's my thought process right now. I would lean to whichever of those receivers has a smaller projection, number 1. But 2, whoever has more yards per out run in the more favorable matchup, which is Mooney right now. So 62.5-ish for London. Okay. London 62.5. Mooney, my guess is probably low 50s then for Mooney, if I had to guess. So right now it's probably Mooney. 63.5 for London. Okay, what about Mooney? What's Mooney at right now? And again, if you guys are enjoying the video, enjoying the live stream, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Can't find anything for Mooney. Interesting. Okay. Anybody else find anything for Mooney? Where are you guys looking to? All you see is touchdown for Mooney. Okay, so we can come back to Mooney, but the early leans in the pass game right now are London and Mooney. I I'm not going to confidently pick either of them right now, especially, but tomorrow isn't up. Okay, interesting. Tomorrow, that's where all my official projections will come out. Let's find some run scheme data here. See if we can find anything better. All right, so the Tampa Bay Buccaneers rush defense. Let's see. Attempts wise, they are facing below average overall yards per carry. 5.01. Good to know. Okay, so their overall yards per carry is not great. Zone versus man. Tampa Bay Buccaneers probably better against zone if I had to guess. Yep. They're really good against zone. Okay. So zone versus man for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers run defense, they are facing pretty much equal. 3.73 yards per carry in zone. 5.87 yards per carry in man gap. Okay, good to know. The rankings, 24th in zone, and then man gap will be 4th highest. Wow. Whoa. Okay, so let's look at the Atlanta Falcons rush offense, because if they run more man gap than anything, oh boy, this could be a nice little lean for us right here. Okay, so the Atlanta Falcons rush offense. Let's see what type of run they run the most. That's the big tell here. That's what we're looking at here. Okay, so I'm looking at your guys' comments. No line for Mooney. That's interesting. Okay, so Thursday, be sure to follow all the socials if you haven't already. That'll be out. But just look overall first. Yards per carry, Atlanta's probably pretty high if I had to guess. 10th, okay, 4.57, and they are – that's the wrong thing. Attempts, they are where are they? Am I missing something here? Where's Atlanta? Whoa. The Atlanta Falcons are bottom 10 in rush attempts this year. That's really weird. All right, let's see if there's anything yards per carry schematically that we need to write home about. Okay. Damn. Okay. So the Atlanta Falcons on the other side run significantly more zone runs, 68-15 in terms of zone versus man. They are 7th in the NFL at 4.79 yards per carry in zone. And then in man gap, they are 6th in the NFL. So they're still really efficient. 6th in the NFL at 5.53, but they barely run those runs. So now we go to the advanced rushing player tab, and we try to see, like, is Algier getting some type of edge in terms of his carries? Is Bijan getting more of a certain type of carry? Let's see. Bijan has double the carries, and there's really no tip here. Although Algier is a higher attempt percentage in terms of man gap, Algier's just been more efficient. So what's Algier's rush line at right now for you guys who are on the YouTube? And again, if you guys are on TikTok, if you guys are on Instagram right now, we're breaking down all this data live on YouTube. So let me know Algier's line. It's also fascinating because Tampa Bay allows so many targets to go to running backs that I almost want to lean rushing and receiving. It's actually the exact same thought process I had for Rico Dowdle last week, and that hit. Bijan's 65.5. Algier's 34.5. Yeah, like that, to me, guys. Ugh. The Atlanta Falcons are scary to bet on, aren't they? 35.5, 34.5. Okay. That's tough. So I think right now, best early lean for Atlanta, and I don't love Atlanta's offense and betting on it. But the best early lean is probably Mooney yards. But we still got to wait for the number on that. So recapping all of this stuff, I will go through this really quickly. And again, if you guys made it this far in the video and you've enjoyed it, Make sure to leave a like. Make sure to comment which player you like the most on Thursday Night Football. But let's roll through this. So the Atlanta Falcons defense versus the Tampa Bay offense. The Atlanta Falcons are allowing the third lowest percentage of targets to go out wide. The Bucs don't throw the ball out wide. They're allowing the third highest percentage of targets to go to the slot. The Bucs do throw the ball to the slot, 12th highest rate. That's where we're leaning. Inline target rate for the Falcons defense, not super great, 23rd in the NFL, and that's where the Bucs actually throw the highest percentage of their targets. What's interesting to note about that, obviously Cade Otton is the inline tight end, but he does run a decent amount of routes from the slot too. So Cade Otton's another place that we can lean a little bit. Running back targets on both ends are right around the average, so we're not really looking at that. Now, slot routes, where we're leaning the most, Godwin dominates, 3.2 yards per out run. When you do that math, those routes or those yards per out run and his slot routes per game, it puts a baseline regardless of matchup at 60.8 yards. 60.8 yards for Chris Godwin. That's regardless of matchup. Then you factor in the matchup. Atlanta's allowing the third highest percentage of opposing targets to go to the slot. He should have well above 60.8. We were talking about it. His projection was what, 64.5, 65.5. Love Chris Godwin. That's our number one early lean. Love Cade Otton too. In terms of the run scheme data, it's really interesting because Atlanta's run defense is very good. They're top 10 in man gap defense, and they're top 13, I think, in zone defense. The Bucs are pretty evenly split, but they are way better in man gap. Way better in man gap, and it's not close at all. 5th highest yards per carry in man gap, 31st highest, so second worst yards per carry in zone. When you look at where the running backs in that Bucs offense are getting their carries, Bucky Irving has 6 more man gap runs than Rachaad White does. So when you look at Rachaad White's rushing total, you look at Bucky Irving's rushing total, understand Bucky Irving's carries are going to come on the plays that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have been significantly more successful at. And it's interesting looking at Atlanta because they're pretty even in both. It's like 4 yards per carry per run on both schemes. Bucky Irving's rush total is a very, very interesting thing to look at. But early leans for the Bucs offense, Chris Godwin and Cade Otton. Godwin yards probably above catches, but yards. Looking at the Tampa Bay defense versus the Atlanta offense, to be honest with you guys, kind of a nightmare. There's nothing really, really confident I can pick here. The only thing to write home about is the out wide target rate. So Tampa Bay is allowing the 7th highest. Atlanta's throwing about 40% of their passes out wide. 11th highest target rate for Atlanta, though, comes in the slot. So the majority of their passes, it equals out to about 77% of their passes are coming either out wide or in the slot. Tampa Bay doesn't give up a ton of targets to the slot, but they give up a lot out wide. Darnell Mooney and Drake London are pretty evenly distributed in terms of where they run their routes, out wide in the slot, but Darnell Mooney has almost a full one more yard per route run, one full yard per route run more than Drake London out wide. So I lean that way a little bit. Drake London's projection is 62.5. And again, we haven't seen Mooney's projection. It's not out yet. But the best early lean we have for Atlanta right now is probably Mooney yards. And again, Thursday on the socials, on Instagram, on TikTok, whatever it may be, that will all be out there. It will all be out there. But the Mooney yards is probably the best lean right now. The only other one is man gap runs for Tyler Algier. Like, the Bucs run defense is pretty good against zone, but really bad against man gap. And the Falcons are really good running both of them. But Algier is significantly more efficient in both types of runs. So I think Algier has a chance to break a big run and get above that 34.5 total that we've been talking about. So early leans, I guess we can throw Algier in there, but in order of confidence, Godwin, probably Otton. I would go Mooney, Bucky Irving rush, and then Tyler Algier rush. Those are the 5 we're looking at. Again, guys, I appreciate you hopping on the YouTube. I appreciate you watching this video, watching the live stream. Again, if you're new, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like this video and leave a comment on your favorite player projection for Thursday Night Football. I appreciate you guys hopping on, and I will see you next time. God bless.